Welcome to Worth Wandering with Sarah and Brody. Okay. So the next thing, and you're going to love this, Brody. You're going to love this. We have, as part of our identities, public versus private selves. Hear me out.
Say that
Are
one
you
more
with
time.
me? Hello. You're Instagramming.
Literally.
He's like, it's for the podcast. Okay.
It was.
So as part of our identity, we also have public versus private selves. So this is called
Okay.
faith. Have you ever heard
It's
of
called
the
what?
term? Have you ever heard of the term saving face?
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
So face is not like literally just my face. It is the socially approved image or identity that we show people. Right? So our public selves, otherwise known as presenting self, like how I present myself to society, that's what I want people to see. So when I go into a classroom or doing this podcast, I do my hair a certain way, I put on my makeup, I dress a certain way, and I try to act and speak in a way that I want to be seen as credible or confident or whatever those things are. But then we have our back face or the perceived self. So this is what we do privately that we never want other people to see, but we do know is us. Right? I mean, this is the stuff like, I don't want people to know I pick my nose or go to the bathroom.
Or the girls fart.
Oh, I'm not embarrassed to say, girls fart. I'm here to just break the news to everybody. But so these are the things that we really don't want people to know about or see, like picking boogers and eat them. And I swear to God, I just can't. Even Frozen 2, he's like, all guys do it. This is not something I am familiar with. Brody, do guys pick their boogers and eat them?
Oh, I've 100% picked my nose before, but eat them, no. That
You're lying.
No, I swear. I cannot fathom eating your own boogers.
Yeah, no. I mean, as kids, my brother, his nose was always running. He'd like lick the top of his, so gross. I can't. Anyway,
really?
Yeah. So what we also do is face work. And so what this means is that we have strategies that we use
like Botox?
to influence.
I'm just kidding.
Kind of strategies that we use to influence how other people see us. And let's just talk about online impression management. This is called impression management. It's like what we do to make sure people see us in a certain light. You and I have talked about this so many times, and I talk about this on my other podcast, Crazy Normal. Instagram mommies has become a term for mothers who have everything like put together. They always they're like came from a spa and got their hair and makeup and nails done every day. And they have like 5 kids, but somehow they have not one hair out of place. Their house is so clean and they feed all their kids every healthy meal and all of these amazing things. And then I'm sitting here like, well, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Because that is not how motherhood feels for me. In fact, I feel like I'm drowning every day. And so that is what we're talking about. We have these impressions that we manage, especially through media, that are what we want people to think of us, right? I mean, if you look at your Instagram, what is something that you see the most of? I mean, I see a lot of travel because I want people to know that I like to travel and that I'm a traveler and I'm cultured, you know? And sometimes we construct multiple identities. And this is one thing that I want to quickly squash. Have you heard of the term social chameleon? No? Okay, so somebody might call somebody else a social chameleon, meaning that they change their identity when they're with a certain crowd. Now, of course, there are extremes. And so there are people who literally fake who they are to fit into each of these groups. But a lot of the time, I think we're mistaking another term that is code switching. And code switching is really how do you change your verbal and nonverbal communication style to fit with the group that you're currently in. And this is not pretending or being somebody else. This is just you are highlighting one part of your personality more than other parts, right? I am a sexual being, but I'm not going to act sexually around my grandparents, right? I'm not going to say, hey, bitch, to my grandma, but I'll say, hi, Nana. Right? I change the inflection of my voice, the tone, the words that I'm using. And I also, don't walk into a family party.
Next time I see her.
She'd actually probably think it was funny and be like, oh.
She probably would be.
What's going on with you today, honey? But
she'd be like, all right, sit down. Let's have a talk.
Right. But it's like with my students, I'm not going to talk about my sex life, but with my friends, I might. I don't know. It depends. And so we do highlight certain parts of our personality with other people. This is why a lot of the time I'll have my students imagine, I'm like, hey, Brody, could you imagine I don't know, your friends in the army meeting me and my mom's and having a grand old time together for a party for you? Or would that be weird as hell? Because there are different personalities and different cultures that are happening that us together would be odd for you. Because you showed probably your army buddy. Sorry, you were Coast Guard.
Either or. Yeah.
You probably acted a certain way with your Coast Guard buddies than you do with my parents.
True. I agree with you 100%.
You act a
Because
different
I
way with
think
your
the things
professors than you do with your friends.
Yeah, I mean, the things that you say around certain people are not said the same around other certain people.
Yeah.
Whether that's, and especially, and that could be very true to like race and ethnicity and stuff like that as well.
Yes.
So
now we're getting into in-group, out-group. If you're part of, that's going to be a whole new day. I'm not even going to start. But
I'm not gonna go there.
This can be deliberate or unconscious. And by unconscious, I mean subconscious, where we kind of don't realize that we're changing our personality or highlighting a certain part of our identity to fit in with another group. But sometimes it's super intended. And that's where we see catfishing, where people just pretend that they're a whole nother age, race, religion, person online. And then that's terrifying. Okay. Here's something that's going to blow your fucking mind. I want the listeners to, if you're not driving right now, and if you are driving, when you go home later, do this. Look at your Instagram
pull over
photo.
right now, 405.
I'm gonna have Brody
do the brake, swerve right.
No, I'm gonna have Brody do this right now. Brody, get your phone out. I want you to pick a photo from your Instagram feed that is one of your favorites. Pick one favorite.
Like my feed.
From your actual Instagram. Pick your favorite photo.
There's a few.
Pick the best one.
I'm picking one that I'm like, oh yeah, that was this one. There we go.
Okay. So it's Brody and Holly being super cute in front of, where are you?
It's a fountain in London.
Yes. Okay.
During
so
Christmas.
My first question is
literally Christmas Eve.
Okay. So Christmas Eve in London in front of a fountain, and you guys look super cute. And so that's usually my first question is, what is it of? My second is, why did you share it? Most of the time we share stuff without really deep diving into why we sent it. So now I'm asking you to try to remember that time when you sent it. Why did you feel like you wanted to share that?
It was essentially my online Christmas card to everybody in the world. But
okay. And why did you
so I would say there's two reasons I picked that. One, because it's a picture of us two, and that's basically the whole shirt and our cat. But the cat wasn't in London with us. And two, because it's it was a picture of us that Holly approved of. And two, one of the most amazing times I've had in the last few years was our trip to London and Paris.
Yeah. And so you chose them for all these awesome reasons. What did you hope that other people would get out of it, right? Because when we post stuff, we don't just post it because, oh, I like this photo and I want to share it. We might hide behind that answer. Oh, I just like it, so I want to share it. But there's a reason that we post that particular picture in that particular pose in front of that particular thing versus other things, right? So what did you
So I think that's good.
Hope people would get out of it or would like about it?
I would say because, and that's hard to go back and pick something that long, like during Christmas time, because that was obviously this Christmas, but the picture was taken last year.
Right.
Last Christmas, right? Because we couldn't travel this year.
Ooh, so that's even another layer.
Right. So because it's a Christmas photo, if I'm doing a Christmas card, obviously I want it to be in Holly and I. And it's a lot easier for me to say, oh, I'm going to pick a picture. And this is where Instagram versus reality comes in. Instead of just saying, hey, Holly, let's take a picture really quick of just us right now on the couch for Instagram. Because the reason I posted a photo in general is because it's Christmas time. I want people to feel joy. I want people to feel connectedness with us, right? Because of all of our friends and whoever might see it. I knew that I had to post something, and that's the best way to do it, right? And so instead of just picking a photo, I'm like, oh, this could be whatever. I picked a photo that was from a moment that I really had fun, that was also during Christmas, and that I also felt comfortable, that I thought I looked good in. I thought she looked good in. Yeah. And it was a joyful looking picture and a joyful time.
So what do you think that says about your identity, not just then, but now? that you chose a picture from a year ago instead of what was happening now in your life? What do you think that says about who you are and how you feel at this time in your life?
Well, it's funny because I don't remember how I felt during Christmas.
Well, this is the thing, and this is why I'm asking you to do this exercise and
No,
everyone
I
at
like it.
home, because we tend to not think really deeply about why we post them, but all those deep reasons are there. It all comes
Mm-hmm.
from your self-identity and how you want to be seen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I could analyze why you did it, but I want to see if you can kind of identify what did
No,
you
I think
want
that's
people to
great.
like, what were you trying to say about yourself when posting it, either to yourself or to the people you were posting it to?
For me, I don't go deep into why I post something.
But it is there.
I'm sure it is, 100%. But that's a subconscious thing that's happening for me.
Yeah, for sure.
That's not a conscious thing that
Sure.
I'm doing.
So can I just do a little, analysis on what you had said? So to me, it sounds like your identity is all up in there. One, you know that there's people who care about you, and you know that people like me, your best
Mm-hmm.
friend, would want to see a picture like that. So that is representative of who you are as a person. You are a selfless person
Mm-hmm.
who likes to share your life because it makes other people who love you happy. But
Mm-hmm.
the biggest thing that I saw there was you were stuck in quarantine. She's doing a nursing program. You're working with COVID patients 3 days a week. And instead of posting kind of the reality of where you were, which is probably super depressing and something you don't really want to remember, you wanted to instead remember a beautiful moment. And that is part of your identity, is trying to find positivity in a moment that doesn't feel great. Right. So the last time I felt this
I
good,
actually
and
think that's pretty good. That's pretty good and like spot on in the sense of like finding positive. Like, I definitely thinking about that photo. It's like that's a very positive moment in my life, and
yeah,
I'm going to share a positive moment in my life with
rather
people
than
because I
how
want
we're
people
sitting on the couch
also feel
getting
positive.
depressed.
But I would assume I didn't post a picture of like, hey, I'm actually working Christmas in the ER and we have a bunch of COVID patients and blah blah. Because it's not something I think that people want to see. So obviously a picture of her and I is something I felt more
Which
that
is
people
so
would want to see,
interesting
right?
because I actually think people would want to see the COVID thing because it's dramatic and it's like, oh, I know somebody on the front
Right. But
line.
I also don't like the dramatism as like, for
And
instance,
that is your
it's funny.
identity. That is
People
a
like we
value you
posted a
have.
video of my coworker Steven and I, who he blew up to have like 2 something million followers on
Damn.
TikTok and social
Yeah,
media.
Steve,
And
you denied coming on this show. Can rethink. We'd love to have you.
oh, you just got called out.
We love
And
you.
and I actually deleted the video because it's funny, I was getting tons of messages for people to do like commercials and stuff. And I deleted it, one, because my uniform is very specific to where I work.
Yeah.
And two, it was just, I don't know. It's like I felt like so many people are doing enough negative complaining of COVID and quarantine stuff like that. I'm like, there's so then this is a belief of mine. There's so much, and a patient, I almost said his name. That would have been really bad HIPAA
Yes.
violation.
HIPAA violation.
He said, "Thank you so much. We need more people like you in this world." And
That's so sweet.
my response was, hey, I really appreciate that, but there's no sense in me being negative when there's enough negative people in the world that outweigh the positive people.
Mm-hmm. Or at least when it feels like
And
that. Yeah.
and to me, that's just the reality of things. The world is a much better place than people lead it on to believe. And I know there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
hate. I know there's a lot of this and a lot of stuff. And it was something when you referenced to media about
Yeah, it was about mean
people
world
who watch
syndrome.
media see a lot more hate in the world, or they view it as a more hurtful place, which is true though.
So
The news is designed to show,
shock, awe, and fear.
let's go with that. And people pay attention to that more.
Yeah,
And if there's enough of that in the world, I don't need to contribute.
I love
I would
that.
rather do the opposite. And it's not killing people with kindness. I know that seems toxic to people. It's just kill them with kindness.
Yeah.
Obtaining a set of core values and self identity is like almost in one. I think if people were to determine their self identity from a set of core values,
Mm-hmm.
would be a lot more beneficial than saying, I am my career, I am my beliefs, I am my social
Yeah.
status.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of core values, my big ones were integrity, respect, and never settling. So,
Oh, I love that. And so those are your core values. And I think ultimately when we're talking about identity, it's just multifaceted. It's the messages you're getting from the people around you, how you were raised, both culturally, socially, where you were raised. When we talked about the culture part, that really also includes where exactly you were born in the world. Were you also born into poverty, or were you born into
Mm-hmm.
extravagant riches? Were you born into a liberal family or a conservative family? Were you born into a race that is oppressed, or were you born into a race that has all the privileges in the world? Those things are going to affect the way that you see yourself and the way that the world sees you. And so we're always moving and becoming new people as we get older and as we learn more, but we do have core kind of sense of self, right? There's this core
Mm-hmm.
ideology of, I am Sarah, I love art and I love my husband and I've always wanted to be a mom and now I'm a mom and I have really close family ties. And those things, without those, I have a total identity crisis. Like, who the fuck am I? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to mention one more thing before we're done with this, is that a lot of people ask me, are there biological components to our identity? Right. So we talked about how culture and social and personal identity kind of comes to be. And those are the components of who we are. But are there any that are biological? Scholars have found that some personality traits are actually inherited through our genes, and it's through like serotonin and dopamine are,
Mm-hmm.
modulators of mood. They say it's no major surprise that genetic differences in the biochemical machinery that handles them may affect our personalities. So your DNA is going to tell dopamine and serotonin how to respond, which also affects mood, which affects who we are. And so they actually
Mm-hmm.
did a study in Germany where they found a gene variant that seemed to correlate with scores for neuroticism. And I'm going to explain what that is in a second.
Hmm.
And then separately, an Israeli team reported another gene with a similar link to extroversion versus introversion. Again, I'll explain. And then a study done in Jerusalem found a link between extroversion and a gene involved in neurotransmission. So all of that crazy stuff is just to say some genes will actually predict what your personality is going to be like. And if you've never taken the Meyers-Briggs personality test, it's like a
Mm-hmm.
60 item questionnaire that asks you all these different questions. And there's a shortened version of it online. It's called 16personalities.com. And it's a
Okay.
free personality test. So you answer questions like, do you make friends easily? And you either put totally agree, medium agree, less agree, neutral, and then the other side is the levels of disagreement.
Right.
There's another question. What it means to lead a good life is a question that you return to again and again. Brody, you would definitely say yes. I always think about what it means to lead a good life. Seeing other people cry can easily make you feel like you want to cry too, right? So they have you take this test. And ultimately there's 16 different personality types. So going back to this idea that genes can control some of our personality traits, they found these 5 factors. So neuroticism measures emotional instability. So people who score highly in neuroticism are anxious, self-conscious, moody, have low self-esteem. People who are on the opposite side are easygoing, they love themselves, they're totally fine. Then we look at extroversion. It measures happiness, energy level, interpersonal skills. High scorers are approachable, they're assertive. Sometimes they call them loud. Low scorers are introverted, reserved, and sometimes submissive. Then they look at openness to experience. And so people who score highly, they like novelty, which means new things, loves to do new things. They tend to be creative. And then the other end of the scale are people who are conventional. They like tradition, they like pattern, they're orderly, they like their routine, and they have a strong sense of what is right versus wrong. And then there's 2 more. So we look at agreeableness, which refers to the way that you relate to other people. So high scorers are compassionate, empathic, friendly, warm. That's totally you, Brody. And I'd say me. And at the
Mm-hmm.
other end, we have people who are shy or critical or egocentric. Now, not all of these things at the same time, but they tend to be just opposite from one another. And then the last
Right.
one is conscientious. So this measures your degree of organization. Like if you're high on this list, you are motivated, disciplined, and trustworthy as hell. Low scorers are unruly and easily distracted. I'm definitely a low scorer on that one. But the idea is that they were able to find that this was part of our DNA, y'all. So there are some predictors about your personality just being inherent from birth. So I think that's a really good intro into personality and identity, but that was basically an entire class in like 1 hour and a half. So I think if you're sitting here and you're wondering, who am I? I'm
Right.
having a
How?
hard time and I really want to know like who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that I do is, first of all, writing in a journal is one of the best things you can do for your mental health, but also just to connect with yourself. So, especially when I'm having a hard time understanding how I'm feeling about something or I feel blocked up, I'll write it out. Even if I feel nothing, I'll just write out what I'm thinking at the time. And that often will make way for you to understand yourself a little bit better as you get used to doing this, right? Because your inner voice starts coming out more. Another thing to do is to think about how much you've been told about yourself versus how much you actually think about yourself. So if you keep getting told by everyone, you would make such a good doctor. And you're like, oh, yeah, yeah, I could do that. And maybe you're halfway through. I had a student who was halfway, she was on her road to medical school. And in the middle of this conversation, she goes, and I'm like, are you okay? What happened? And she goes, I don't want to be a doctor. Oh my God, I don't want to be a doctor. My parents have put me on this track my whole life. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, oh no. I mean, oh yes, good. You found yourself. But your parents are going to be pissed at me. But I mean, really think about how others speak to you and how that reflects on how you think of yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because people who are intuitive tend to think a lot and often overthink about themselves and how they're affected by the world around them. But if you're not that way, here are a few little games that you can play with yourself. First, the Instagram activity, I think, is a fun one that we
That
do
was
with
really good,
Brody.
by the way. I like that a lot.
Right? I was looking at one of my own and I was looking at the one that I did recently of Oliver with the bubbles.
Yeah,
God, you so cannot see that at all. But
I
it's
can tell.
Oliver in the backyard with bubbles and he's laughing. And that was, if we're getting really deep, that was me wanting people to see me as a good mother, that I don't just sit on the couch and have him watch Coco Melon all day, which is really, truly what most days look like because I'm having a really hard time with my postpartum depression and 2 kids. And so in that day when I was feeling kind of bad about being, not being the best mom that I can be, I wanted to post a picture of one moment where I felt really good about being a mom. So I wanted people to see that I was a better mom than I think I even thought myself. Does that make
See,
sense?
and yeah, but I think that's a really good point that you touched on because I think understanding why you do things
It's how
is
you learn
like
yourself.
a huge takeaway from that test.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's really important that people don't think so much into things like when they post something, because like what you said, right? Like you posted that because deep down, this, and that.
Right.
But in the moment, it made you feel good.
It did. And I'm not
And
saying that we all deeply think about this when we do it. Some
oh,
people
for
do.
sure. Who does?
But I will say
Probably nobody.
it's there. And that's why I want you to do the Instagram activity is because even if you
Yeah.
think, "Oh, I just posted this cuz I liked it." I dare you to dig deeper
Mm-hmm.
and really think about, "Well, why did I post that? Really why?" If
Mm-hmm.
the reason is I wanted people to see it and like it, why did you want them to like it?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think that they would like from this and what does that say about how you want to be seen? Do they
I think there's two key takeaways from that. One is self-identity. Are you struggling with self-identity and you're trying to find yourself? And two,
Yep.
is it from a market value, a business perspective of are you trying to bring value to your consumer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you are trying to bring value and
Yeah.
create a brand and you want people to understand who you are, not
Right.
just buy something for you because that's bullshit. You want people to understand
Yeah.
who you are, then that is a really good task.
Yeah, I think so. So another one that I like to do is write your own eulogy. It's called the funeral test.
Oh dear
So if
Lord.
you're really feeling like you don't really know who you are and you're having a crisis, write your own eulogy and answer the questions such as, how do I want people to speak of me or about me at my funeral? What should they remember me for? And which kind of person will people think I was when I'm gone? Those are 3 very different questions. So this exercise was made popular by Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And what it does is that it helps you really figure out how you want to be seen, and thus you find out about who you are, right? Because
Can
if
you
I'm
text
asking,
that to
how
me?
do I, yeah, and we'll post all of these little activities on the description of this video
Yeah,
and
we'll do posts on them as
podcast.
well so people can try them.
Yeah, it sounds great. And there's a few other ones. You could write a regret letter. So write a letter to your younger self. This is something that they do in therapy, especially if you have trauma, where it's surprisingly cathartic because it's more than just listing what you wish you had known. You actually tell yourself, your younger self, about the regrets you've had in your life so far, and you apologize to your younger self for any mistakes you have made and the opportunities that you've let pass by. So,
Mm-hmm.
aside from gaining a feeling of empowerment from accepting your vulnerable younger self, your words can also help others who are in similar situations as you face the past.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, there's so much there. And then the last one that I think is helpful for people is create a bucket list. That tells
Mm-hmm.
you a lot about who you are. Having a bucket list helps you identify your personal goals, your professional goals. And they say this whole thing like when the daily routines of your life begin to set in, you're likely to let the days pass by without thinking too much about your long-term goals and desires. So
Mm-hmm.
using a bucket list helps to keep yourself focused. It helps you make an effort every day to accomplish at least one small task that leads towards these kind of bigger things on crossing off your bucket list. And it doesn't need to be a long list. It could be one thing that you put up every year, every
Mm-hmm.
month, every week, that you have somewhere that you see that you're working toward, right? So my bucket list is to go to Hawaii with my family the second this COVID thing is done. And I'm going to figure out what I need to do to get that happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you realize and look at your bucket list later and say, oh my God, 8 out of 10 of these things are career oriented, that tells you a lot about you and how you view your career right now and how you want it to be. If
Yep.
9 out of the 10 things are travel related, you are a traveler. You want to see the world. You have an
Mm-hmm.
adventurous spirit, right? So there's just so many facets to our identity, but ultimately you will figure it out.
Yep.
It takes a little time on figuring out who we are at our core and then figuring out what things we like and what things we don't like. That's why I asked in the beginning, what's one thing you would change about yourself? Because if the answer is confidence, then what are you doing to start being more confident, right?
I love it. I think that's great. I mean, people are going to take away a lot from this.
I hope so. It's such good information and it really sets you up for a lifetime of joy.
Yeah.
And our personalities and certain things about us will change over the years. And that's why we'll come to places where we're like, oh my God, who are we? I know that us having children was a big identity shift for me because now it's not about me. I am not the most important person in my world anymore. It's my kids and my husband. And now that has rearranged priorities because your priorities are your identity too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, sit with it, y'all. Think about who you are and do this in a moment of deep self reflection, and maybe you'll get something from it. And if you do, please tell us about it. Write on our Instagram page or Facebook and tell us if you did any of these exercises and how it felt. Even if
Yeah.
you got
I mean,
nothing out of it, tell us.
you could be like, okay, that was a bullshit episode.
I hate that.
Or you can also say, oh my God, I was totally struggling with that. And I tried this and it really made a difference,
Yeah.
or I listened to that and I didn't realize that I was in that place,
Yeah. Oh,
just like
yeah.
your student for your med school student one.
Like a light switched on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, and
An aha moment.
self-identity doesn't have to be this thing where it's like you're a broken individual.
No, no. I mean,
And
we
I
all
think
have
that's what
dark
a lot of
places.
people think when
Yeah.
they're struggling with self-identity, or they don't know what job they want, or to go to school for,
Yeah.
how to lose weight, or all this stuff. I think they think that they're broken in a way,
Right.
and it doesn't mean that you're broken.
No, not at all.
I think that,
But it's
and
so
that's why one of
good
my
to
core values is
identify.
never settling, because you
Yeah.
should never, ever, 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 ever settle. And you should, especially for mediocrity, you should always try to live each day and your entire life to its full potential. And that full potential could be,
Or the best you can.
Right. I agree. I think rephrasing that could be a little bit better for some people. And that's why I was going to kind of explain that your full
Yeah.
potential doesn't mean you have to be Elon Musk,
Or
right?
that I have to take my kids on like a crazy adventure every day.
Right.
Because some
You
days I
don't have to
can't
be
hardly get out
Instagram
of bed.
mommy,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Document your life as you live it, not try to create something that's
Yeah.
false.
True to where you're at and trying to overcome the hard times and realizing that when you're in a moment of feeling like you've lost yourself, that
Mhm.
the core you is still there. You're just recalibrating, and you're going to recalibrate several times in your life when
Yep.
you change, because we
Yeah.
change. And so it
Mhm.
might be scary to feel like, oh, did I lose a part of myself? No, it's just different.
Yeah.
It's just different. It's kind of, our identity feels so ingrained with us that, I mean, a lot of people will never really feel this as deeply as some people do, right?
Mhm.
Like these
And
shifts
some
in
people will
identity.
never realize that they went through it in their life.
Yeah. But some people like me who really know themselves so well that when anything feels out of whack, you just get sent down a spiral.
Yeah.
You are not gone. You just are in a transition moment. And so trying to remember that the person you know yourself to be, the core person, is still there. You're just feeling a little lost because there's a lot of change. And
Mhm.
once you start to get used to this new person, you'll be like, oh, she was there all along. It's just, I have some new priorities. I have some new ideas. I have some new wishes and passions and all those things. Anyway,
Embrace it.
embrace it.
Embrace it. I think we'll leave people to sit on that one and sulk
Yeah.
in it.
Sulk in it or soak in it.
I meant to say,
Sulking
I
is
think
sad.
soak in it. Sulking
Okay,
is the
that sounds
sad
good.
version, right?
So everybody just soak in it, okay?
Soak in it without pants, like Sarah.
Yeah, it's not a good day. It's fine. It's a great day, actually. It's great. It's a great
It's a
day.
great day.
All right. I love you, Brody. Thanks for talking with me about this. God, I feel like I feel so, see, this is part of my identity, by the way. I am a working person. I love work. I love doing things that make me feel like I'm good at something. And so being a stay-at-home mom for the last 7 months has been really taxing on my identity because I'm like, I'm missing the piece that's mine, that I'm good at for me and for my students, the people that I really want to learn and care about. And I have these passions. And so being able to talk with you about this is great. But school starts next week, so I'm going to be fine. Can you tell that this was like mostly me talking to myself this whole time? We're
So
fine.
really, this whole episode derived from Sarah's self-identity crisis. No, I'm just kidding.
Totally. Well, actually, it did in part ways. It, like in part. Oh my God, I can't even talk. Yes and no.
I struggle. Honestly, I think I struggle with self-identity every single day because
Yeah.
I'm always trying to create something, a better version of myself.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there's so much to do in this life in so little time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and to be frank, death is my biggest fear in life. So
My biggest fear
it's
is losing my identity. Ironic. So
interesting.
basically, if I ever got dementia, just put me out of my misery.
Old Yeller style in the backyard.
I don't care how you do it.
Just do it, get it
let me
over with.
go.
I support that.
Seriously, it's horrible. I can't, and I've seen so many people.
Yeah, I agree.
It's awful. Anyway, we keep going on because like this
I
is
know.
such good information and I want to keep talking about it. But it's now 10:30 and we've been recording for 2 hours. Don't forget,
you,
y'all,
guys.
please don't forget to review, like, subscribe. Add us on Instagram and Facebook. We really want to know what you want to hear about. So join us on a magical journey.
That is our call to action. Subscribe, like, review, share. And we can't wait to see you guys on the next one. So
can't wait. Live a life you love.
live a life you love.